Hello, it's your friendly neighborhood host, JT Wheatley, back for another episode of the History of Comics podcast, this time with part 2 of the Life of Gene Colan. When we last left off, Gene Colan had just started a successful run at Marvel with a brilliant run on the Daredevil, along with being one of their top artists during the Silver Age, but he was about to embark even more superstardom as he started on what would be his signature series, Tomb of Dracula. Dropping Doctor Strange couldn't have come at a better time, as it gave Gene Colan an opportunity to do his dream project, Tomb of Dracula. Tomb of Dracula came about when the CCA relaxed its rules after 17 years when Marvel published an anti-drugs Amazing Spider-Man story arc to great acclaim and without code approval. Realizing they needed to adjust to the time, the CCC relaxed their rules, allowing for nuanced storytelling along with bringing classic horror characters back to life. Marvel tested the opening with the introduction of the Morbius the Living Vampire in Amazing Spider-Man number 101. Personal fact, the most expensive comic book in my own collection. And after that success, they set out to produce a new horror line with Dracula to be the premier character. Though their Werewolf by Night, would beat Tomb of Dracula by 2 months when it appeared in Marvel Spotlight number 2 on February of 1972. Originally, it was announced to be part of their Marvel mature-rated black and white magazines, which didn't need CC approval anyway. But Marvel then decided to make it a part of the regular comic book line. Tomb of Dracula was to be written by Jerry Conway, and while Gene Colan wanted the job, Stan Lee accidentally offered it to Bill Everett first. However, Colan's wife encouraged him to at least put in his tryout with his version of Dracula based on the 1968 Dan Curtis TV movie where Jack Palance played the title role. Sure enough, Colan was allowed to pencil Tomb of Dracula. It was a rough start at first, though the first issue showed promise and sold well enough for continuation. However, fans complained in the letter columns how the story was derivative and Dracula was too pale. With issue number 2, Tomb of Dracula went bi-monthly at 20 pages. Unfortunately, Vinnie Coletta took over the inking and was notorious for erasing whole details of the original pencils throughout his career, including Colan's work on Tomb of Dracula. It got so bad it caused writer Jerry Conway to quit the series, plus he just got an Amazing Spider-Man job as well. Archie Goodwin took over as writer and introduced the character of Rachel Van Helsing, the crossbow-wielding descendant of Dracula's ancient nemesis, Dr. Van Helsing, and Taj Natel, a mute Indian, in issues number 3 and 4. Then Gardner Fox wrote issues number 5 and 6, introducing some Lovecraftian themes, while Tom Palmer replaced Coletta as inker, a perfect pairing for Colan's pencils. Finally, Marv Wolfman took over with issue number 7 under editor-in-chief Roy Thomas's orders, despite not wanting the job. Nevertheless, Wolfman saw an opportunity to write a series his own way, so he reread Bram Stoker's original Dracula novel, noting that the book was as much about the vampire hunters than Dracula himself. With this, Wolfman introduced the Harkers, a family led by wheelchair-bound Quincy with his 2 children, son Jonathan and daughter Edith, joining Frank Drake, Rachel Van Helsing, and Taj in their quest to defeat Dracula. By issue number 10, on July of 1973, the team of vampire hunters expanded even further when Marv Wolfman and Gene Colan created Blade, a black half-vampire who now hunted vampires, giving his origin in issue number 12, where it's revealed the vampire Deacon Frost turned Blade's mother into a vampire when she was pregnant with him, resulting in his half-vampire condition. This story arc also saw the shocking death of Edith Harker, and Wolfman credits it as when he finally got his groove on the series. By issue number 25 in October of 1974, vampire detective Hannibal King joined the series. It was this final team, along with the creative one of Wolfman, Palmer, and Colan, that set the standard for Tomb of Dracula, lasting for 8 years and 70 issues, with Colan penciling the entire run, and the one consistent creator on the entire series. And today it is still considered one of the best books in the 1970s. It was noted for its nuanced stories and characters, with Dracula himself shown to be a very complex character. Many consider Marvel's version of the classic horror villain one of the best depictions of the character. The series even spawned companion titles, the black and white Dracula Lives, that lasted for only 13 issues and 1 annual from July of 1973 to 1975, and the color comic Giant-Sized Dracula, which existed outside of Tomb of Dracula's continuity, save for the introduction of Lilith, Dracula's daughter, appearing in giant-sized chillers featuring The Curse of Dracula number 1 in June of 1974, created by Marv Wolfman and Gene Colan. During his run on Tomb of Dracula, Marv Wolfman found himself promoted to editor-in-chief, with led to Gene Colan getting work redesigning the Tomb of Dracula logo, along with being able to do the covers, something artists like Jill Kane had originally done, though Colan would later admit covers was never his strong suit. Of interesting note, Colan was at one point 6 months ahead with the art on Tomb of Dracula, which allowed him to briefly leave after issue number 58 to work on Howard the Duck newspaper strip, only to come back without the fans even noticing. Ultimately, both Wolfman and Colan, despite seeing the series as a creative high point of their careers, eventually tired of it, and with the sales slipping, Tomb of Dracula was ended with issue number 70, in which the crippled Quincy Harker used the last of his strength to plunge a silver stake through Dracula's heart, killing him and causing the destruction of Castle Dracula. Its legacy as one of the greatest comic books of the 1970s remains, especially with its numerous characters it created. Blade, of course, would go on to star in Marvel's first successful live-action movie in 1978, played by Wesley Snipes. Dracula himself remains a character in the Marvel Universe, and more than a few consider the Marvel version one of the best of the classic characters. Plus, it remains a high point of Gene Colan's career, with many calling it his finest work. However, even this wasn't the end of Dracula, as a black and white magazine was revived in spring of 1979, with the original team of Wolfman, Colan, and Palmer all on board. However, Palmer was soon replaced by inker Bob McLeod, which upset many Tomb of Dracula fans, and later Wolfman would leave Marvel altogether for DC, his last issue being Tomb of Dracula number 3, which did have Palmer return. The magazine would only last for 3 more issues, with Roger McKenzie writing number 4 and 5, and editor-in-chief Jim Shooter doing number 6 himself. Gene Colan's next significant work at Marvel was with Steve Gerber on Howard the Duck, the satirical character of a talking duck who first appeared in Adventures in the Fear, number 19 of December 1973, created by Gerber and artist Val Manerick. The character became an instant hit thanks to its humor on meta-commentary comic books, leading to its own series. Colan was made a regular penciler starting with issue number 4 and admitted to being hesitant on doing the assignment until he read Gerber's scripts, which he thought were brilliant. Gerber would comment that with Colan there was an almost telepathic bond, leading to another of the most celebrated runs in Marvel Comics. During Colan's run, he had to put pants on Howard to satisfy Disney, who was threatening to sue him over him being too similar in appearance to Donald Duck. Ironic today. But also had Howard run for president in 1976 under the all-night party, leading him to receive thousands of write-in votes. Let's be honest, Howard is a better candidate than most candidates we have lately. On June 7, 1977, Marvel launched a newspaper strip which Colan penciled and inked, causing him to leave Tomb of Dracula for a brief period. He did this on the encouragement of Stan Lee, who claimed he could retire after royalties of a Howard the Duck strip. However, Gene Colan would leave the strip to return to Tomb of Dracula, with Howard the Duck co-creator Val Manerick replacing him, while Colan would stay on to the Howard the Duck comic book until issue number 31. Of the Howard characters, his favorite to draw was Dr. Bong, who first appeared in issue number 15 on August of 1977, a doctor with advanced knowledge in genetic engineering, along with a bell-shaped helmet that, when hit, created various effects. Dr. Bong became Howard the Duck's arch-nemesis and was loosely based on the Chicago journalist Bob Greene, along with being a send-up to the Dr. Moreau from H.G. Wells' classic story, The Island of Dr. Moreau. Gene Colan's run on Howard the Duck would win the Eagle Award for Favorite Comic Book Humor in 1977 and 78, along with 4 other nominations, with Colan also receiving the Inkpot Award in 1978 as well. Despite his numerous successes, Gene Colan got a new enemy with the new editor-in-chief Jim Shooter, who hated Colan's pacing and put him on the Avengers, which Colan hated due to the number of characters he had to draw. Things got so bad between Shooter and Colan that the vice president of Marvel had a meeting with the two to smooth things over. It wasn't enough, and Colan finally left Marvel as he felt Shooter did not give creators the free hand like Stan Lee or Roy Thomas did. Luckily, he had a place to land. In 1981, Gene Colan would leave Marvel for DC, signing a 3-year contract and made waves throughout his comic books fandom. His debut issue was Batman number 340 in October of 1981, written by fellow former Marvel employees Jerry Conway and Roy Thomas, and featured Colan's name on the cover, which of course he didn't draw. Colan would become the primary artist for Batman from 1981 to 1986, penciling most of the issues of Batman and Detective Comics during this time. During his run, he helped revive Golden Age villains like Dr. Death and the Monk in Batman number 345 on March 1982 and issue number 350 in August 1982, respectively, and co-created the villain Killer Croc in Detective Comics number 523 in February of 1983 with Jerry Conway and Don Newton. Killer Croc has since become a regular fixture in the Batman and DC universe, making numerous appearances in Batman the Animated Series in the 1990s, along with his live-action debut, for better or worse, in 2016 Suicide Squad, depicted by Eduardo Okoye Adoboja under some heavy Oscar-winning makeup. Apologize for that obvious mispronunciation. In DC Comics number 41 in January of 1982, Gene Colan redesigned Wonder Woman's logo from an eagle to a stylized WW symbol on her bodice, which had the additional effect of allowing DC to trademark the image, leading to numerous merchandising opportunities. The new costume premiered in Wonder Woman number 288 of February 1982, complete with a new WW cover banner, and Colan contributed additional art to Wonder Woman number 300 in February 1983, staying with the series to issue number 305, where he and writer Dan Miskin reintroduced Circe as one of her main villains. Next, Gene Colan did the Phantom Zone miniseries, reteaming with Steve Gerber as a tie-in to the Superman 2 movie. Later, Colan did the Spectre with Doug Moench, and reteamed with another Marvel former writer, Marv Wolfman, for Night Force, a new horror series about a team led by Baron Winters to battle supernatural threats, which first debuted in New Teen Titans number 21 on July of 1982, but the series would only last for 14 issues. However, Gene Colan would soon face criticism from John Byrne, who in a notorious interview in Comics Journal number 75 in fall of 1982, said that Colan was a has-been who couldn't draw anymore. Wolfman would come to his defense in Comics Journal number 82, but his honeymoon to DC was over, with his last issue being Detective Comics number 567, written by Harlan Ellison, as DC let his contract expire, thus allowing Colan to go freelance. While at DC, Gene Colan did Ragamuffins for Eclipse with writer John McGregor, and the latter, Nathaniel Dust, on February of 1984, which DC allowed because there are no superheroes in these series. Colan would state that McGregor would overwrite his scripts. Colan also did Gem, Son of Saturn with Greg Potter and the graphic novel adaptation of Robert Silverberg's Hugo Award-winning Nightwings with Cary Bates. In 1987, he did Silverblade with Cary Bates, Predator, Hell and Hot Water for Dark Horse, and Detective Comics Incorporated with Don McGregor at Eclipse. In addition, Gene Colan started teaching at the New York School of Visual Arts and Fashion Institute in the 1980s for 8 years. However, he was never a fan of academic settings. Back on Archie, Colan started on Archie and His Pals with issue number 186 and continued onward with the series for 3 years. After Jim Shooter was fired as editor-in-chief at Marvel in 1987, Gene Colan returned to the company in 1989, doing a 25-page Black Panther story with writer Don McGregor for Marvel Comics Presents, along with fill-ins on Iron Man and Wolverine. Colan also reunited with Marv Wolfman for a Tomb of Dracula 4-issue miniseries in the Marvel Epic imprint in 1991, but with mixed results. Wolfman states that he and Gene Colan just didn't click that time and has since despised that miniseries. Colan also did The Howlers, a six-issue miniseries that was adapted from Clive Barker's work. That same year, though, Colan had a heart attack and would have to move to Vermont. He later suffered glaucoma and, after several surgeries, lost sight in his left eye along with developing tunnel vision in his right. To help him during this recovery, Clifford Meff did the Gene Colan Treasury to help raise money. And after Gene Colan recovered, he did freelance work for Comico, Dark Horse, DC, and Marvel, as his tunnel vision thankfully didn't affect his artistic abilities. In 2005, Gene Colan was honored at the San Diego Comic-Con by being inducted into the Will Eisner Comic Book Hall of Fame. By the age of 75, he was mostly doing commissions and paintings, but still found time for the occasional comic book, especially when returning to some of his classic creations. For example, he penciled Blade number 12, Volume 3, on October of 2007, which featured a flashback in his original costume from the Tomb of Dracula. Colan also returned to Daredevil for issue number 100, Volume 2, on October of 2007, for pages 18 to 20 of the 36-page story, with the comic also reprinting his Daredevil number 90 to 91 from the original volume from August to September of 1972. His last significant work would be Captain America number 601 with writer Ed Brubaker on September 2009, for which he won the Eisner Award for Best Single Issue in 2010. It will be one of the many awards Gene Colan received for his esteemed career around this time, with the Cartoon Art Museum in San Francisco presenting his work in Colan, Visions of a Man Without Fear, from November 15th, 2008 to March 15th of 2009. He also received a Sparky Award on December 4th, 2008, and won the Comic Art Professions Society Sergio